All right.
For the children.
So it's Elul. Wow. Gimel Elul. So it happens to be the yortzeit of my grandfather, so we learn in his memory. Avram Shmuel ben Eliezer, I believe.
No, it's already the 4th.
What?
It's nighttime already.
Yeah, it's nighttime already, but whatever. We'll just.
Close enough.
Yeah, it's just that he died in my hand, so when I was 19 years ago. Anyway, so we are studying Shmuel Aleph, chapter 12, verse 14. And we are in the midst of Shmuel's farewell. This is one situation in the Tanakh where a shofet or leader, a Jewish leader, is finishing their term, their official term as a leader, not by passing. He is still alive, and he will continue to be for at least several more months, maybe a year and a half even. He is going to just function as a prophet, not as a judge. So, as he put Shaul, installed Shaul, and he saw his inauguration and several months of sort of waiting for the first event to occur. The first event that King Saul needs to handle, and it was the war in Yavesh Gilad against the king of the Ammonites. And now it was a successful war, and now Shmuel gathered everybody for his farewell words, which we learned about half of last time. And he basically was telling them again that it was a mistake to ask for a king. And the king is standing there. And the king is the one that God said there is nobody better to be a king. He was like an outstanding guy. But it was wrong to ask to have the king. And but now that you have the king, it is what it is. We can't go back. And this very sharp and strong words would throw Saul a little bit off his regular way of acting, and will cause a whole bunch of problems later as he trying to compensate, as he's trying to he's trying too hard, too much. Let's join the farewell words on Pasuk on verse 14. So he finished before saying he gave reasons why it was wrong to ask for a king, because enumerating all of the miracles that God made for the Jews since the time of Jacob, since the time we went down to Egypt. Enumerating the past 400 years of the judges, how we had several nations that were fighting us, and nonetheless God saved us without a king, and now you all are afraid of the king of the Ammonites, Nachash. Why do you need a king now? Why did you need a king now? But now that we have a king, he says, Im tir'u et Hashem, if you're going to fear God, and by the way, in this verse, he's giving us a step-by-step on how to worship God. What are the minimum necessary conditions or actions that we need to take in order to do the right thing, to worship God properly. First of all, we have to have fear of God. We have to have a fear that if we're not going to do the right thing, we're going to be punished. Va'avadetem oto, and we have to worship Him actively. Ushma'atem bekolo, and we have to listen to Him. Not only worship Him, also listen and follow what He said. V'lo tamru et pi Hashem, and we should not do specific we should not transgress specific sins that he mentioned not to do. והייתם גם אתם וגם המלך אשר מלך עליכם אחר השם אלוקיכם. And you have to follow, you and the king, in order for the Jews to sustain the king, and in order for the king to sustain his kingdom, both has to act properly and follow the way of God. ואם לא תשמעו, and if you לא תשמעו בקול השם, ומריתם את פי השם, and you're going to do against, you're going to not listen and do the opposite of what he instructed us. והייתה יד השם בכם ובאבותיכם. And so the hand of God is going to hurt us, to God forbid, work against us, and against our ancestors, which is a very strange word here. Why? It should be Bachem and Malkechem, right? Why is he mentioning Avotechem?
Yeah, in fact, there's no mention in the second sentence. The first sentence says that if you follow God, then you and the king will be successful.
Mm-hmm.
In the second sentence, it says if you don't, then you.
Right.
But it doesn't say anything, any
it doesn't
consequence
say,
for the king.
Right. He's looping back with the king all the way at the end, but you're right, that's the question. Why is he mentioning Avotechem? So the rabbis are teaching us that God doesn't have a hair trigger, it doesn't have a finger on a hair trigger. And it's not, you do something wrong, boom, you're out. He has erech hapayim, he has a long memory and a lot of patience, and gives us second and third and 15th chances, and we know it from our regular lives. This is how God is acting with the Jews. So if our ancestors going to do something, they may not get the punishment. It may take longer, and the children or the children's children may get the punishment instead. So he's telling them, don't think that, you get out of here and, you drink without saying shahakol and you survive, boom. So this whole thing is out the door. Now, and this is painful, what happens to those who actually sinned and didn't get punished? How is God retaliating from them or punishing them years later? So one of the commentaries is saying that it's what happens is that graves are getting lost. Graves of people who didn't really listen to God in such a strict way, one of the ways that they're getting punished is that the graves are getting lost.
What happened to the Olam Haba concept?
Olam Haba is okay, the Olam Haba is not lost to anybody, that's everybody. Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek le'olam haba. So Olam Haba is not lost. The punishment is here in this world because there is in the physical world there is a strong connection. A Jewish body is holy. You do bris in it. It's a Jewish body is a holy. There is a very important a mitzvah to bring someone to Kever Israel, to a proper burial. And if someone, God forbid, is being
cremated.
What?
Cremated.
Cremated. So there are a whole bunch of laws that apply, like don't say shiva. I mean, there is a whole to do. So a Jewish body has to be le'afar tashuv. It has to go back. So if one of the punishments is those who didn't merit, their grave is disappears after a while. And this is why some people really like to be buried in places like Har HaZitim, where the graves are it's a cemetery. Even though it's layered, it's a cemetery. In Prague, in the cemetery in Prague, there's 14 layers. one on top of the other. So they're there, but Anyway, so that's the power of it. And I heard actually a snippet from what the Rebbe was talking about, these people that are buried in places that are not, doesn't have a lot of Jews that are observant Jews, that eventually, the cemetery is not going to be there, and it's a shame, and people should try to. That's why people go to Eretz Israel, So anyway, so that's why he mentions the ancestors here. גם עתה התייצבו, so verse 16, גם עתה התייצבו וראו את הדבר הגדול הזה אשר השם עושה לעיניכם. And now he is not just finishing with the words. He actually is asking, he wants to show everybody some sort of a mofet, a nes, some sort of a sign that they will know that whatever he's saying is true. Now this is rare. We've seen it only in a couple other occasions. Moshe several times, lift his hand and whatever he whatever he asked God to do happened. But on a regular basis, that doesn't happen. There is one more case later on with Eliyahu Hanavi, who asked God for a miracle on the spot, and it happened. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. They pray, and sometimes God offer a miracle. Sometimes it comes later. Sometimes it comes in a way that we don't recognize it. But for someone to say this and that will happen, and it happens, is very, very, very rare. And Shmuel, being one of the greatest, one of the greatest prophets, is able to pull this off. So what is he trying to do? We are at this point a couple of months after the inauguration of Saul. Saul became a king in Nisan, in the month of Nisan. And now we are after Shavuos, after Ktsir Chitin. Okay, so it's 3 months later or so. And actually, it's probably before Shavuos, because it's during Ktsir Chitin. It's the time of the harvest. Now, the time of the harvest in the land of Israel is dry, because if there is rain, it ruins the crops. You can't. They spoil after if you cut them when they're wet. So he wanted to show them, listen, you have it all good, you have fields to harvest, but you did something wrong, and it can get ruined. And see how. Today is the time of Ktsir Chitim, of the harvest. And I'm going to call God, I'm going to pray to God, and He is going to produce thunders and rain. And that you will see, that will make you understand and see that you did something wrong, that you have a lot of ra'ah is translated evil, but it's not really considered here evil. It's you did something wrong. It's a kinder interpretation of the word. It's not really evil. It's less than that.
Poor trait.
What?
A poor trait.
Yeah, maybe it's more of a weakness. It's written here as a weakness. So it's a weakness to you that you have everything. You grew. There is a harvest. You have a land. You have a place, and now it can all come crashing down with one rain. With one act of stupidity, it can all get ruined. So So you're gonna get it because you were asking for a king. So he's telling them that that's what he's going to do, and immediately proceeding to do it, Vaikra Shmuel el Hashem, and he calls God, ויתן השם קולות ומטר ביום ההוא. And God right away on that day, what? Answers, yeah, and produced rain and thunder. וירא כל העם מאוד את השם ואת שמואל. And they right away started fearing, this is this kind of a hocus pocus doesn't happen often. And when you're there, what? It's really frightening. ואמרו כל העם אל שמואל, התפלל בעד עבדיך אל השם אלוקיך, ואל נמות כי אספנו על כל חטאותינו רעה לשאול לנו מלך. So now they all are dreading it, and they said, all of the entire nation who was there celebrating, who was there to inaugurate the king, who was there to celebrate the win over the enemy that they feared so much, now they're asking Shmuel, don't go. Please continue to pray for us, because now they're afraid that they're going to die, that it's so terrible what they did, and we added on our sins, which means, as we mentioned before, if somebody does something that is transgresses, is doing a sin, they're not getting punished right away. It's cumulative. So had they not have any sin before and just ask for a king, nothing would happen. If they just sinned what they did before and not ask for a king, also nothing would happen. Now that they did both, they have the baggage from before plus asking for a king. Now they're afraid that they would, the how do you call it? The scale is going to be tipped, and it's going to spill over, and they're going to get it over the head. And they saw this miracle happening, and they got scared. So Vayomer Shmuel el ha'am, al tirau. So now Shmuel is taking the opposite approach, and he's saying, listen guys, now that I scared you half to death, now please don't fear. Why don't fear? Because you did it, and you have to own it, but there is a way out. אתם עשיתם את כל הרעה הזאת. You did indeed, and therefore there is a whole danger that your way of life is going to totally change. אך אל תסורו מאחרי השם ועבדתם את השם בכל לבבכם. All you got to do, and that's the easy schmeezy part, all you got to do is just to worship God and don't veer off the way, and everything is going to be fine. You should worship God with all your heart, which is obviously a very, very high, tall order. It's not easy, but it's the easiest and the only way to handle the situation. ולא תסורו, כי אחרי התוהו אשר לא יועילו ולא יציעו כי תוהו המה. This is a very strange sentence, which the rabbis are struggling with a little bit. But they're saying basically, tohu v'aretz hayta tohu v'avo, right? When the world was created, before the objects that we all know and love, the trees and the animals and the earth, and before it was formed, the land was tohu v'avo. The place was nondescript, like there was nothing there. So tohu means nothing. And here he is referring to all of the idols and all of the gods and all of the methods that people might go after that are not helpful. You're looking for some help. You're looking to manage your lives and avoid a disaster. Don't go after nonsense. Don't go after tohu. Shelo yo'ilu, because it's not going to be helpful, and it's not going to save you, because they're nothing. They don't have any power and any strength. And this is one of the most comforting sentences in Tanakh that we have songs. Ki lo yitosh Hashem et amo, right? God is not going to leave us. It's not going to abandon us. This word of abandonment came. We felt in our history several times that we were abandoned. 70 years ago, some people felt, most people felt. And in Tanakh, at the time of Gideon, he was mentioning, why did you leave us? Why did you leave us to our devices? And we feel like we're not, that there is no driver. So God is saying, so Shmuel is saying now, God is never going to leave us. God is never going to abandon us. Ba'avur Shema Gadol. Why? Because He chose us. He chose us, He made a selection, and He is never wrong. And if He is going to abandon us, He is basically going to damage His own name. So it's we have no choice. Ki ho'il Hashem la'asot etchem lo le'am. Because God selected us to be His people, and therefore He's going to stand by us, because He knew, He saw Hayav Vevi. God doesn't have a limitation of time, and He saw the entire history before He was elected us, and after, till the end of time, and we're the best there is. So He's never going to leave us.
But the song is
It's not from here. It's from Tehillim.
Yes.
The song is from Tehillim, but Tehillim,
It's close.
right? But Tehillim is copying it from here.
And Hashem
David-
Hashem Elchanei Lev Yom Kareinu isn't Tehillim and not here? The second half of the
Yeah,
song.
it's not here. I mean,
Right.
it's so David HaMelech, who wrote Tehillim, who came after Shmuel, was many times quoting prayers and we will see actually when we in Shabbos morning, we'll see how David HaMelech is mentioning a whole section that was mentioned before at the time of the judges. He is quoting it in his songs. So now Shmuel is also proceeding to let everybody know that he is not off the job totally. He is off the job as a shofet, because now there is a king, and if you need to be judged or to govern, that's going to be the king's job to do it. But I am not going anywhere. I'm still alive. And if I'm going to not do what I'm able to do, which is pray to God for you, I'm going to be jeopardizing or doing the wrong thing, because anybody who's able to help must help whichever way they can, even if they're not in office anymore. So I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to start sinning now by stopping to pray for you. And I will still teach you. Horeti is coming from the word more, to teach, right? I'm going to teach you, and I'm going to show you the right way. And I'm just asking you, and it's like the third time that he's saying, Ach יראו את השם ועבדתם אותו באמת. Please fear God and worship Him with truth, בכל לבבכם, with all your heart. כי ראו את אשר הגדיל עמכם, because you should see that God really gave you more than what you deserve. And if not, again, אם הרע תראו, and if you are going to do the wrong thing, גם אתם, גם מלככם תיספו, you and your king are going to end. This is coming from the word sof, end. You God forbid going to end. And with that, Shmuel is no longer a judge. And very sad, but we have a lot more serious things to deal with right now, because Shaul is now on his own. This is when Shaul is starting his solo governorship or judgeship or kingdom. Rulership. Yeah, he's now he's going to fly solo. He is going to consult with Shmuel from time to time. Shmuel is still his teacher. He's still a prophet. He is still obligated to ask him. But Shmuel is no longer going to lead the nation directly. Shaul is going to lead the nation, and he's going to consult with Shmuel. Now we have a very common phrase that in Tanakh appears many, many times. Every time that there is a discussion about a new king, telling us how old was the king when he became a king and how long they ruled. And this is a very strange and not simple sentence, because it says, Ben Shana Shaul b'molcho. Shaul was a year old when he became a king. Hello? That doesn't make sense. He was 50, right? We know that the rabbi is saying that the words Ben is 50, is the gematria has a numerical value of 52. That he was really 52 when he became a king. So what does it mean? So there are many, many explanations, and some of them are saying he is as pure and as pious as a year old. A year old never did anything wrong. Pooping is not considered a sin. So it's a baby of a year old is pure and sinless and a pious person. So Shaul, when he became one, was as pious. On the other hand, there are those who say that it signifies the fact that he didn't have a lot of experience. He didn't have a lot. The highest office he had before was being in charge of his father's donkeys. That's and suddenly he becomes a king, and he was very worthy of being a king, but he had no experience, which is going to show very, very soon. And when you're talking about a year old, you can't really say, oh, he accomplished this and he accomplished that. You can't really say anything about a year-old baby. They don't have. It's almost that they don't have history. And so the same thing with Shaul. You can't really dwell on his failures because of his greatness. He was a great guy, and you cannot really keep praising and stress his greatness because of his failures. It's like a problematic situation where you can't really say much, good or bad, because it's a mixed bag, and that's some of the mix of all of the explanations of the rabbis that I saw, the commentaries about this pasuk. Ben Shana Shaul b'molcho. And then it says, Shnei shanim malach al Israel, and Shtei shanim malach al Israel, and he was king 2 years. The truth is that he was a king 2.5 years, but for half a year, or for a few months, he was together with Shmuel, right? So that's not considered his fully, it's like a shared, but two solid years he was a king. So we are, this event happened in around the Shavuos time we mentioned, right, during the harvest, and we know later on we will see that he died in Elul, so it's 2 years and 2 months basically that it was a king. Okay. Now, what happens now after he won that war with the Ammonite king? Remember how big of an army he was able to amass? 330,000 people. Big army, a lot of people. After the immediate threat, which was the Ammonite king, disappeared, he dismantled the army. He sent everybody home and kept a very, very small unit of the king's guards, basically. ויבחר לו שאול 3,000 מישראל. So he selected 3,000 people, special people, strong people, warriors, more pious people, so they're not going to have a problem at war. It's common to understand that in war people that don't have the merit of being doing the right thing are at more danger than those who do. So he selected the good people. והיו עם שאול 2,000 במכמש ובהר בית אל, and he was hopping between two locations. Those two locations were very close to each other. They were a couple of hills apart. One of them is Bet El, which we know where it is, and one of them is Michmash, which we also know where it is. It's a couple of mountains south of Bet El. It's exactly in the midway between Ophrah and Jerusalem. Ophrah is in the north. Jerusalem is south of it. Right smack in the middle is Michmash. And over there you have very hilly terrain, very hard to go through with a lot of people. And he used that as it's an easier place to protect because it has cliffs around. And he was hopping between those two places. And so he needed 1,000 people in each location. And another 1,000 people, the Elef Ayum Yonatan, with Yonatan. Who is Yonatan? His son, but we never said that, right? He's appearing like that. It doesn't even say the son of Shaul. He's just appearing. And Yonatan is a very, very special character, a very special individual. He's called Yonatan because it's Yonah Tama. He's like a wholesome dove. Very, very special individual. He was the oldest of Saul's sons, and he was trusted with creating another location or another station that is central, Begivat Binyamin, we're close to their hometown. And so Yonatan was there, and he was sort of running that station, that branch of government, which was not far away. We know where all those places are. There are digs nowadays, and they find all kinds of relics from the past, that sort of supports the fact that there was a Jewish town in those places. Now, what happens is that the state of affairs in Israel at the time was as follows. If you recall, 50 years before that, the time of Shimshon, the Philistines were really hurting us and terrorizing us. And Shimshon started a war against them and was able to destroy a couple of 2,000-3,000 of their leadership, and sort of kept them in check for 20 years. Then Eli came on board, and he was ruling for 40 years. But the Philistines were not quiet. They were not really defeated. And then there was the big war where they captured the ark at the time of Eli, and so they really got very strong as a result. We got back the ark. The ark created havoc in their midst. They sent back the ark, but they didn't really retreat it. They didn't back down. Yeah, they continued to monitor and control the land. The center of Israel was under their thumb, and they sent troops all over, and they had governors around, like a governor of Israel that takes care of those affairs. It wasn't an ambassador; it was more of a governor. And they used us in half slaves, not really, but they took whatever they wanted, essentially, and they imposed an embargo against weapons, against iron, because in those days they were the only ones in the Middle East that had weapons made out of metal. So they didn't let us have it, and they strictly sent troops to make sure that no blacksmith is popping somewhere and starting to make their own tools. They did make money off of us by selling us plows and by selling us oxes. But once the plow, the ox became needed some sharpening, we had to go back to them because they had the tools. And they would charge an arm and a leg. They would take the ox and would axe, not animal, cordon, no?
Hatchet.
Hatchet. They would take the hatchet. Stop. Garzen. They would take it and they would weigh it. And they would say, okay, give me gold for that, and then I will sharpen it for you. So people, literally, they really ripped us off in a very, very terrible way. And so the only time that they were defeated a little bit was when Shmuel became, after Eli passed away, and Shmuel decided to teach them a lesson. And there was a war, and he won the war against them. And there was 10 years of quiet. But again, it's a quiet with a creeping terrorism. Was very quiet for the first little bit, but then a little bit, deteriorated. The situation deteriorated, and so now they are there. If we recall what we learned in the book of Judges, there was always a situation where there was a war with one of the enemies, and then once we defeated that enemy, will be quiet. 10, 20, 40 years, it was quiet. All of the surrounding nations heard the story, got the memo, and they were fearful of starting with us because they knew they're going to lose. Here, this is the first time that a brazen enemy just saw another enemy being defeated, and they don't care. They continue strong in their evil ways. And this is the war against the Philistines. And there will be 3 or 4 wars with the Philistines that Shaul was involved in. One of them would be 3 wars against the Philistines, 1 war against the Amalekites. In one of the wars, there will be Goliath, the story of Goliath, which we'll learn soon. It was the 4th war. And then the 5th war that he lost, Shaul, and he ended up committing suicide or dying during that war. He and Jonathan died during that war. Very, very, so 2 years, 4 or 5 wars, very, very not easy time at all. I mean, just think of our days, You have skirmishes and problems and from time to time things flare up. But, all in all, it's thank God, Baruch Hashem, it's all okay. It wasn't that way then. So what he was hoping to do, after hearing this stern warning from Shmuel, he was hoping to take some time to enjoy the calm days after he won the war against the Ammonites, and organize the kingdom, start creating the institutions, start creating the mechanisms to rule, to assign people to help him and, train them, etc. But he didn't have much, not any moment of respite. And what happened is, as soon as the 3,000 people were selected, and he had 1,000 here and 1,000 there and 1,000 with Jonathan. Jonathan was stationed in the same town where the governor of the Philistines was stationed. And it wasn't an organized attack. It was probably he was provoked. Jonathan was provoked by this guy who would not have much respect for the Jews on a regular basis. And Jonathan, now that he had 1,000 strong army behind him, whacked him and killed him. Vayach Yonatan et Natziv Plishtim asher begeva. So he killed the local governor of the Philistines that was in Geva. Vayishmeu Plishtim, so the Philistines heard. Philistines, it's a nation of it's a nation that's made out of 5 tribes or 5 mini nations, right? So they all heard it. Veshaul taka b'shofar. So Shaul was not really happy that this happened, because now his whole plan on how to organize the nation he doesn't have time anymore. But he was fully behind Yonatan, was standing behind him, and he right away raised the sound, the alarm, throughout the land of Israel. And how would you do it then? Then you would just send people with horns, with the shofar, and they would go and blow the shofar. And when people gather, they'd tell them what happened. That's like the ancient version of the Newsies, So v'shaul taka b'shofar b'chol haaretz, all over, le'emor ishmehu ha'ivrim. And he wanted all of the Hebrews to hear. What is the Hebrews? How they usually call the Jews Israel. Why are we calling him Hebrews? Hebrew is someone who doesn't have the strength to really stand up. That's why we call Eved Ivri. A Jew who is being sold as a slave is called Eved Ivri, not Eved Israel. And Israel is the name of respect, of honor, of strength. Ivri is a Hebrew in modern history too. They would call us the Hebrews in a dismissive way. And so Shaul was aiming his message at all of those people who were fearful of the Philistines, who were under the thumb of the Philistines, who were enslaved by them. So they were calling them basically the Hebrew slaves so all of you should rise up and listen to what's going on here. V'kol Israel sham'u lemor, hika Shaul et netziv plishtim. So they heard the message didn't come clear that Yonatan did it, or that the message came very clear that Shaul is behind it. So Shaul was fully behind his son. So everybody heard that Shaul smited or killed the governor of the Philistines. And what else? It wasn't just an accident. V'gam nivash Yisrael b'plishtim. And the Philistines are really upset. And nivash means smells bad, Boash is, how do you call the skunk? That's called boash, right? So it's the Philistines really liked us at the moment. Yeah, exactly. That's what happened to the Tzfardim, right? So as soon as they heard that, they right away running to the Gilgal. The Gilgal, as we saw in the past couple of chapters, was a gathering place. It's a gathering place where Shaul was inaugurated the first time, the second time. It's a place where Shaul knew if he's going to gather people over there, the likelihood is that Shmuel is going to show up, because this is a place where it's alarming. When the Jews are gathering in the Gilgal, is not for camping, The Gilgal was also off the area of the problem area. The problem area was near Yerushalayim, near Bet El, Shechem, that section. And the Gilgal is 20-30 kilometers east of that, in the desert, essentially. So it's a safer place to gather. So they all went there. Uflishtim ne'esfu leilachem im Israel 30,000 rechev. Wow. So the Philistines gathered to fight us, and they brought with them 30,000 chariots. Not necessarily iron chariots, not tanks necessarily, but just vehicles, army vehicles, and we had nothing. V'sheshet alafim parashim, and they had also horses and horse riders that were armed. ועם כחול אשר על שפת הים, and all of the people of the Philistine people who wanted to go behind the army, a winning army, and then collect the booty and basically take whatever they wanted from the after the army won the war. So they had an unlimited number, many thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands of people behind, like the sand on the beach. כחול אשר על שפת הים לרוב, right? ויעלו ויחנו במכמש קדמת בית אבן. And where they are parking, where they are organizing for war, in Michmash, where Shaul had his headquarters. So, no, the 1,000 people already went with him to the Gilgal. So he's out of town, and they went, and they right away captured that place. With there was no guards, there was nothing. So they right away, and there were so many of them. Michmash was a small place on a hilltop. It's not enough room for all these tens of thousands of people. So they basically took all of the area from Beit Aven, which is north of Michmash, has several miles north of it, and all of that place in between was full of their army. I think I don't know where the rabbi is. Oh, here he is. All right, so we'll see. We'll continue next time. But we basically ran for our lives at the time.